been 1 year with my G80 M3. If you guys are new to this channel, behind me here is gonna be my 2022 BMW individual in Mola red in a 6-speed manual. So in this video, as you can tell from the title of the video and also the thumbnail, we're gonna be doing a review about this. We're gonna give you the pros, and we're also gonna give you the cons, and hopefully this gives you a better idea if this is a platform for you or get something else, right? So we're gonna be discussing a lot of the pros and a lot of the cons and my ownership experience. And my ownership experience, just to give you an idea, has been absolutely incredible. So let's get to it. All right, so just in that 1 year period, we have 6,500 miles on the car. And those miles gave me a good idea of what this ownership's like, right? And this journey really starts, with the ordering process. If you guys are ordering a G8X platform or you're going through the process, just know that's one of the worst parts, right? The waiting period definitely is one of the worst parts. But again, my journey started back in 2021, where I decided to trade my F80 M3 in for this beautiful G80 M3. And I haven't looked back. People always ask me, do you miss your F80? I miss it because that car, I modded it to the point where I had nothing else really left to do besides tuning it and all that stuff. And that really wasn't my interest. This channel is not really about having the most horsepower. I like modifying the car the way I want. And I'm not modifying the car for other people, it's just for myself. I like the way I do things, and that's how I'm gonna do things on this channel. And when this platform first came out, a lot of the controversy that you guys seen on the internet is right here in the grill. This was most of the controversy that you were seeing. It wasn't about the platform of how amazing this engine was. The first thing that everybody noticed was obviously the front grille. Me personally, I had no problems with the front grille. I knew that once you put a set of wheels and with the proper ride height, it was gonna change the look drastically. And I think a lot of us see it on social media and also seeing it with other platforms, right? Seeing what a proper suspension and a set of wheels do, especially with the new M2. I know it hasn't grown on everybody yet, but give it time. I'm sure that a lot of people are gonna be changing their minds once they start all these modifications coming out for that. All right, so do yourself a favor, guys. If you guys are purchasing a brand new or you're ordering a G8X platform, look into doing the BMW Performance Center delivery. It's a zero cost added option. The only thing you could look at is that the dealership can't charge you all the nonsense like, oh, they ceramic coated your car, which sometimes the ceramic coating they put on is not the best, or they say they PPF the car. Sometimes the vendors they use isn't the best, where you have exposed seams and things like that. The only thing that you're gonna have to look into when you do the BMW Performance Center is actually getting the car back to your home state or your hometown, so to say. For me, I live in Florida. South Carolina is actually where the BMW Performance Center is on the East Coast, and also on the West Coast, there's one in Arizona. So logistically, you have to kind of factor that in. I think it's absolutely worth it. You get to drive their vehicles on track and to really abuse them and to get to know these vehicles. Coming from the F8X platform to the G8X platform, it's a big change. And we're gonna talk about those changes and also why you should learn how to drive these cars, because these cars are so tail happy, especially with all-wheel drive and also the rear-wheel drive. It allows a lot of people to actually get onto M3 lists when they total their car or a Copart. And I'm a big advocate of learning the car before you start abusing it. And which is another good thing that I'm going next month to the BMW Performance Center and actually getting to know this platform a little bit better. So one of the major qualities that I noticed, and one of the big pros, is that BMW has stepped up the quality of this platform. What I mean step up the quality is if you look at the finish of the interior, the details they went in depth into making this interior more compatible and more competitive towards the other brands out there. For the longest time, BMW was known for having the dull interior, but the amazing exterior, right? I think now with the new platform, BMW has actually matched the interior with the exterior. And when I really talk about quality, sitting into this car, sitting into the G80 M3, one thing I noticed on the F8X was there's no more creaks, there's no more noises inside the car, I don't hear any rattling. And this is 1 year, right? On my F80 M3, I started noticing a lot of those creaks and rattles within my 1 year ownership period. Granted that the car I had before had about 6,000 miles on it. Again, I was the first owner on that car because that was a executive owned vehicle. Technically I was the first owner, but it was still under the year mark. But within that year period, I still heard rattles, and a lot of things that we complained about as a community, I think they worked on and changed it with this platform. One thing that F80 had was actually a lot of these seals get dried out, and a lot of times when it starts rubbing, you hear that in the cabin. And when I also talk about quality is that when you're in the car, you don't hear any of that. And also the road noise is suppressed. So BMW has listened to a lot of the complaints we did have with the previous generation, and they stepped up the quality. I believe the leather here is a little bit more, I feel like it's a nicer quality leather than the F80 M3. Even the buttons and the lighting, the interior lighting in this platform has stepped it up on the last generation. I feel like the last generation, a lot of the interior lighting was very dull, and it wasn't competitive towards other brands out there. For example, Mercedes, they always have a good interior lighting that looks absolutely incredible. But I think the BMW engineers and designers actually stepped it up with that. I can only imagine what they're going to be doing on future generations, right? As we get into the hybrids, and they're going to use all that interior lighting to play off the hybrid theme, right? Another huge pro about this platform, we'll go underneath the hood, just because it goes hand in hand with it, right? We're talking about the power. This platform has incredible power. Regardless if you have the X-Drive, the competition, or the manual, this car has ample power. Even though the manual is detuned, right? I think more for the purpose of the clutch and transmission, this car feels like a freight train. As of right now, I don't have a tune on it, right? I have the catted downpipe from Active Auto Work. Even with all that stuff going on and the full exhaust, I feel like this car has ample power for me to enjoy it and also to enjoy it safely. All right, as you can see, BMW blessed this platform with the S58 motor. Another thing to look at as a pro is that this motor has been known to be very reliable. We saw this motor actually on the X3Ms, the X4Ms when it first came out. And when you saw that, people were actually tuning it, pushing a lot of power. And as of right now, there's nothing big on the forums. There's no chatter about this engine having a handicap or flaw. A lot of those handicaps or flaws do come up when you start tuning it above the 700 horsepower. We know one of the big flaws about the manual is that when you push a lot of power, your clutch is eventually going to give out. So you're going to have to look into other different stage clutches, so you're able to handle all that power. But as of right now, I can tell you this, for me, this has ample amount of power for me to enjoy it, and so also actually live with it. I don't think I need more power right now, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. And we're definitely going to be changing these out. I don't know when, but sometime soon. Well, I mean soon, maybe in the next year. This manual M3 comes with 473 horsepower, right? And also with the torque, you're looking at 406 foot-pounds of torque. For me, it feels amazing. It feels a lot more. And we all know that BMW always underrates their horsepower and numbers. If you guys were to get the competition, you're looking at 503 horsepower and 479 foot-pounds of torque. All right, so another pro is, I mentioned it earlier, was the interior, right? We talked about the quality, but we also didn't talk about how gorgeous this interior looks. Whether you're in the front of the seat, driver's seat, passenger front seat, or even the back seat passengers, everything looks so incredible. Take a look. So whether if you're blessed to sit in the front seat, it just looks so sporty. And the way these seats are developed and designed by the team at BMW, I really think they did an amazing job to making sure that this competes with the rest of the market. Even your front seat passengers and the rear seat passengers, you're just inundated with a lot of amazing carbon fiber, whether you chose that or different finishes. Especially if you guys were thinking about picking the carbon fiber seats. And again, this is not really a review about it. I made a separate video of how to get in and out, the review about the seats. And for me, I personally couldn't take this car without getting these seats. As you can see, they look absolutely incredible. Even if you're sitting in the back seat here as a passenger, you're just blessed on looking at these gorgeous seats. And being an owner and sitting in the driver's seat all the time, you don't really acknowledge how gorgeous these seats look until you sit in the back seat. And sitting right here and going over this video, it looks amazing. And the quality, BMW has stepped up their game on this. And I think this is one of the best things you could probably get in the car if it fits your body style and also your lifestyle, because we made a whole separate video about that. Like I said earlier, you just gotta make sure it works for you. If you guys are a true manual enthusiast, one of the best things about this platform is that it still comes with a manual transmission. As you can see here, this is your traditional 6-speed manual that, for me, in my personal humble opinion, makes it such an engaging way to drive this platform. Although it's not the fastest, for me, I don't care about being the fastest. I care more about engagement when you drive the car. It's fulfilling when I drive this manual vehicle, and knowing that this is probably the last manual M3 out there, platform-wise, I think this is gonna be very special. I think this is gonna go down something that's gonna be very special in history in BMW, because the next generation, we all know it's gonna be a hybrid. So I think owning this platform and being able to get it in a manual and having that option makes it very special. All right, so something else to look into also is that this vehicle, people complain about it all the time. When it first came out, it's bigger. It doesn't feel like an M3 anymore. And I could see this as a pro, right? Whether you're using this as a daily, whether you have a growing family, this car is larger. And when it's larger, does it translate to being better? It just has to be depending on what your lifestyle is. If you're a single guy in your 20s, no kids and stuff, you may not like the larger size, but as a person in their mid 30s, looking to start a family, I think this is actually an incredible vehicle where I could fit 2 car seats in the back if I needed to, and also have enough room in the trunk to actually put a stroller in and groceries. This car does what I need, and also it's future-proof, right? Future-proof as in I could grow my family with this car. I think this is gonna be a great platform for people that are in this similar situation. I know when people reviewed this car back in the day, with these people, they were talking about how much bigger it felt. And I could see that as a pro and con. But for me, I see more of it as a pro. And speaking about that, let's check out the trunk space actually. There's not really much to see, but one of the best things about this trunk space is that these rear seats fold down. And why is this so important is actually, look at all that room you have now if you needed to transport things, or if you needed to transport things to the Invasion of Orlando. And the reason why I say that is because right before the Invasion of Orlando, I stacked this car filled with supplies, and obviously I protected the carbon bucket seats, making sure it doesn't get scratched, but I filled this car stacked with stuff. With the seats folded down, there's many cubic square inches that you could use to transport things. Again, it's really one of the best dailies out there. All right, so now we're gonna be talking about the cons, and we talked about the pros, and those are the pros that I've noticed over time, and that's why I really enjoy the car, and that's something that you could probably look into. We're gonna be talking about the cons. One of the biggest cons about this platform is actually, I think I mentioned in the beginning, was wait time. The wait time, when I ordered it, it took about 8 months. I've seen other people on the forums, other people on Instagram, they waited longer than that. That's one of the biggest cons about this. And also about 6 months to almost a year ago, people were paying crazy numbers over sticker. But I think times have changed and we're looking to, obviously increase in interest rates, and we're looking at prices coming back down. So that could be definitely a big con about this platform, and that's something that you need to factor in if you're really making the right decision. So we talked about the S58 platform being very reliable, being able to hold a lot of horsepower, and not really having a lot of handicaps. One of the biggest cons about this is actually the way it sounds. A lot of people assume that BMW has fixed it with this platform on that raspy exhaust tone. That hasn't really changed that much. It definitely changed from the F8X, but BMW still lacked the way the car sounds. BMW still lacked that, all right? And I think there's other companies out there. One company that has changed the tones of the S55 and also the S58 was Active Auto Work. And if you guys haven't seen the last video, we actually looked into a little bit more about the equal length mid-pipe and what it sounds on this car paired up with obviously the AW switch path. And that video is totally separate. You'll watch that video and kind of decide if that's gonna be the right exhaust setup for you. And I talk about how it shouldn't be, and you have to check that video out. So when this first came out, everybody thought that BMW has made the changes where they made this exhaust or this tone of this engine so much better. It definitely does, but it still lacked the right tone. And I think a lot of those tones depends on how you feel. And remember, sound is very subjective. Me personally, I love the way this sounds, but the team at Active kind of figured out that BMW did not make the exhaust lengths from the engine and everything to the turbos wasn't equal length. And I think they're off by quite some distance. And that some distance was actually measured from the team at Active, where they developed that equal length mid-pipe that, for me, in my personal opinion, changes the way this sounds, and I love the tone now. So that was one of the biggest cons about this. So another con too was when you get a stock car, you obviously come with stock wheels, stock ride height, and also you had the 19s in the front and you had 20s in the rear, right? These are obviously 20s all around from Edelweiss, but when you had these stock wheels, BMW went with the stagger stance. I understand the stagger stance is more for performance. I could totally see where they're coming from, but visually as a standpoint, it was not as eye appealing for, I think, a majority of us. I think a lot of us really enjoy the 20s all around or the 19s all around. I'm a big fan of doing 20s all around. I think this chassis is big enough where the 20s fit this style. And something to add into the wheels is that when you get a stock G8X on stock suspension, no lowering springs, it is absolutely monster truck height. I think a lot of us measure it by using our fingers, right? I was able to fit almost 3 to 4 fingers in there in the front and about maybe 1 or 2 fingers in the back. I think that was one of the big things that was a big con about this. But a $350 set of springs could fix that. Or a set of coilovers, which is the missing piece that I'm waiting for, could fix that. So another con, in my personal opinion, was actually the brakes. I think for me, with all the brake tests I deal with, I should have went with the carbon ceramics. But even with the carbon ceramics, it's not about the front. That's an issue. For me, it's paying that dollar amount for the rear calipers. As you can see, we'll slide over here, is that rear caliper is so underwhelming. For being an M car, I understand that's probably because we lose the manual type of emergency brake. We have an electronic emergency brake now that probably needs to use this type of caliper. But when you expect to buy an M car, you expect the rear calipers to be a little bit more substantial than that. Don't get me wrong, the braking power from this is amazing, right? These brakes are definitely significantly better than the F8X. And one of the traits that the F8X brings into here is actually how much brake dust it has. I literally just washed the car, and I drove it around the block and it's already covered in brake dust. The rotor is rust, which is something that happens on F80X platform and mostly every single platform that doesn't have carbon ceramics. The rust issue becomes an issue after you wash the car. Everything on the rotors becomes a little bit oxidized and becomes that copperish rust look. And one thing that sucks about it is that any liquid you use, I've used any liquids like Hides rust stoppers. It doesn't really do too much, but when you take it to a drive, all that rust, copper gets all into the barrels after and all in the spokes, and that's what happens. For me, I know I mentioned in the video, some of the regrets I should have had on this car was definitely the carbon ceramics. But if you're very particular about things like that, maybe it's worth it. Again, that's gonna have to deal with how deep is your pocket or how much you wanna spend, because those calibers are not cheap. So one thing that I noticed, and also a lot of people have noticed for this platform, is that these brakes make a lot of noise, right? When you're coming to a stoplight, coming to a stop sign, and you're gradually braking, the screech noise of it, it's high pitched, and you're hoping that nobody's around because they're gonna think it's your car, and obviously it's coming from your car, and they're expecting a car like this and this caliber to be, you know, squeak free and stuff, and you're out there making all that ruckus. Those are one of the biggest issues about this, and I'm not too sure. Maybe you have to get Ben, AKA the second goat, to come onto the channel to kind of explain why it makes those noises, unless one of you guys could kind of explain in the comments, because I'm actually curious about that. All right, so those are my pros and those are my cons, and hopefully this video gives you a better understanding of what the ownership could be like. This is coming from my, shoes, right? My personal experience of owning this car for 1 year. If you guys have any different experiences or anything that you would want to share for the community, let me know in the comments, because I think I mentioned it in other videos. People do read the comments and people do take that as input, especially when it comes to these type of videos. I'm very excited, and I'm still waiting for that coilover, right? And I think the coilover, whenever it gets here, it's gonna transform things and it's gonna speed up the process with the modding. And I've given a lot of people explanations of why I'm not doing any of the mods now, is because, again, I like to say there's a method to the madness. So I definitely wanna thank everybody for watching this video. If you guys found this video helpful or entertaining in any way, hit the thumbs up. It definitely helps my channel grow. And I wanna thank you guys for the continued support. And I will see you guys in the next video. And I think in a future video, like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna be going to South Carolina, where we're gonna be doing a different experience where I'm gonna be able to showcase for you guys. I'm very excited about that because we're gonna make some solid content. But other than that, I wanna thank you guys again, and I will see you guys on the next video.